Hello, hello. Welcome to this edition of At the Mic. I'm your host, Keith Malinak. It's the Wednesday wild card where you never know what you're going to get. You know what? Let's change it. Let's change it to Wednesday box of chocolates. Sorry, I'm a sucker for alliteration. We're going to stick with Wednesday wild card. Okay, lots to get to today with my guest. If you haven't followed him yet on X, at Real Steve Friend, be sure to do that. Also, be sure to, in fact, you should do it right now while you're thinking about it. You should go over to Spotify and look for his podcast, American Radicals Podcast, and subscribe there, follow it, click the bell for notifications, right? Do that for At the Mic Show, too. We'll wait here for you while you go and take care of that. American Radicals Podcast, be sure to go and follow Steve's show. He reveals some incredible stuff there, which he's going to do for us here today on the Wednesday Wildcard or Wednesday Box of Chocolates. We'll workshop that. We'll see what we come up with. Okay, next week at this time, my guest is going to be Stu Bregeer, my former boss over at The Blaze. I don't know how many of you knew that, but Stu doing his new, predictableshow.com. He's going to talk to us about that. We've got a lot to talk about. That's just one aspect. So he'll be here 1 week from today. Let's see, the Thursday deep dive last week. If you missed, Dr. Jeremiah Johnston talking about the resurrection of Christ and all of the physical evidence that we have of that. Some great information there. He's going to come back, I think, in May. We're trying to shore up another date because there's so much more to get to. That was last week's deep dive. Tomorrow's deep dive is going to be all about childhood vaccines with Dr. Jennifer Margulis, and she has some very important information that I wish I had when I was a young parent, but that's neither here nor there. Hopefully it can help you or someone in your world, the information she's going to share tomorrow at this time, 24 hours from now. What else do I have in the old housekeeping list here? As always, go to atmshow.com where Wes is constantly putting up the show with all the links you need. Why do I leave the banner up here? I'm getting worse and worse at leaving the banner up here. I'm so sorry. atmshow.com is the graphic that should have been up there at this point, but there's just too much to remember, so I apologize. But thank you to Wes for always putting up everything over there, and over Instagram at the Mike Show, where Gabby does great work for us. That's what I want to tell you. I just remembered to Friday at noon Eastern, Steve Deace show. I'm going to be a part of the Deace group at 12 o'clock Eastern at the start of that show with Steve and Todd and Aaron. I love those guys. Going to have some fun. That'll be Friday at noon Eastern. Have I covered everything? My gosh, I'm so sorry. You have a guest here, bro. You don't have to just talk for the whole afternoon. Hey, buddy. What's up, Steve friend?
Oh, not much, man. You're in high demand if you're going on the Deace group. That's a good time.
I have such a great time whenever they have me on over there. It's truly a lot of fun, and I have no idea. You know what? I need to check my email because Aaron sends out the topics. Because you've been over there, right? You've been on the Deace group, yeah.
I have probably I don't know, a handful of times, 4, 5, 6 times. He does a pretty good job of giving you the topics ahead of time, so you're not hit totally cold.
I don't have anything yet. What do you think is going to be? What do you think the topics would be? You think any of them have anything to do with Iran?
I mean, maybe a down pilot or two. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But just have your Lindsey Graham prediction ready.
Oh man, that's such a setup. Yeah, Steve Deace and the Deace group, Friday at noon Eastern. I mentioned Spotify. That's where people need to go and follow your show, I think. And it pops up in the feed when you got a new thing. I can never remember which days of the week though. I just see it and I go, oh, Steve's got something new there. What are the days again?
Monday through Friday, all weekdays.
Oh, it's every day now. No wonder it's popping up so much, bro.
Yeah, I'm generating all that content out there, hopefully hitting a few more eyeballs and ears than it has before, and actually was able to cross the threshold to monetize the Spotify, so I'll be able to maybe make my amateurish endeavor into a professional one, or at least pay for a little bit of the costs, defray those costs in order to produce it. But yeah, Amrad Pod, where you can type it in there and find it, and generating that Monday through Friday gets posted around like 1 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah. That makes it. No wonder it's popping up so much now. Okay, sorry. It's hard to keep up with you because you do have so much information, man. And I appreciate you making time today to go over a lot of that with us here. Because if people don't know your background, former FBI agent, you stood up to the J6 persecutions against Americans that were just, in the same zip code as the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. And that has led to quite a ride for you and your family. And I am just grateful for you as a friend and as an American. You stood up, you did the right thing, and holy crap, have you suffered and continue to suffer for that. I don't know if you want to get into any of that, but I just want people to know that no way in hell is thing. It hasn't all worked out and been all sunshine and lollipops, has it, sir?
No, and I think that's kind of by design, regardless of who's in charge. The motivating factor behind it, the incentive structure for the way our government works, is they don't want anybody to ever step out of line, because that's their goal of a bureaucracy, is to continue to grow and material and power and influence. And anybody who's not willing to just be a good German or a good American in this case and follow orders is going to be the problem. So you get removed and you pay the price for that for, I don't know, forever. It seems like
Seriously.
that sometimes, but I get a chance. I've gotten you only get to go around once. Got a chance to meet a whole bunch of really interesting people, yourself included, and have a platform, a fledgling one at the time, but at the same time, it's also really rewarding to have the ability to impact some people's days. And, I try to do the lunchtime sort of times to get to people, and not make it like a 4-hour Joe Rogan podcast, more like 35-40 minutes, and find things that might have slipped past their attention, past the goalie, outside of the 2 or 3 topics that every single news source and content creator is covering that day.
And that's the thing about your show, Steve, is that there are so many things to learn, and I'm not just blowing smoke, man. The stuff you learn on the American Radicals podcast is fascinating and shocking all the time. So, in fact, some of those stories, I mean, we got to talk about this One Taste Wellness Company story. It involves an FBI, a dirty agent. No, come on now. There can't be such a thing as a dirty FBI agent. What's this story, man?
No, you just have to ask Sean Hannity. They're all the best. So this is actually a long time coming. It hit my attention. Revolver News has reported on it pretty extensively. Multiple pieces have come out about it. But what you should know is One Taste Wellness Company, we'll keep it family friendly. It was a masturbation focused wellness. I mean, they all need Jesus. Okay. But it was a voluntary to get involved with this thing. And it was all during the Me Too movement, and it caught the attention of Netflix. And Netflix did a documentary on it. And then the FBI got involved because they saw Netflix, and they said, we can get in on this Me Too thing. And a bunch of the women who were part of this organization said, well, we were labor trafficked. But what came to pass was that the FBI, the agent involved, his name was Elliot McGinnis, and their star witness, who was one of the victims / witnesses here, she wrote these journals about her trials and tribulations working for the One Wellness Company. Unfortunately, those journals were written after her experience. They weren't written in contemporaneously to document her experiences. She wrote them afterwards with the assistance of the FBI agent. So they generated fake evidence.
Well, hold on a second. That's par for the course for the FBI to generate fake evidence or to set people up. So this is just kind of, but usually it's before the fact, not after the fact. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So this guy actually has a long history, and it's been also documented. I think Frank Report did a pretty good job of collecting all these stories. He's intimidated witnesses before. He's withheld evidence before. He's threatened people. He was an NYPD cop at one point and had a civil complaint against him for punching a guy in the groin. He pointed a gun at an old woman. He tried to set up a civil asset forfeiture of another older woman. So he's kind of a bad dude. He is the lead agent on this case. The FBI and the Department of Justice bring forward a criminal indictment against 2 women, the CEO and then the chief sales officer, and they succeed in convicting them both. One is going to federal prison for 6 years. The other one's going for 9 years, I believe, at this point. And then they have to pay restitution to the victims, which will amount to about 100 grand a piece to 7 different women. And who knows after taxes and legal fees. And then there's a civil asset forfeiture element where the federal government gets its piece of the pie. So the feds get $12 million and the alleged victims get about 100 grand, all because the FBI saw Netflix and Me Too, and they put a dirty agent on the case who manufactured evidence in order to put otherwise innocent women engaging in lawful but really weird activity into a cage.
What percentage of those that work at the FBI would you, Steve Friend, put into the good camp in the bad camp?
I think you need to categorize it a little bit into smaller categories,
Okay.
because I think most people are kind of just bebopping along. It's a job. And when it's just a job to you, you might be doing things that aren't objectively good, but be kind of unaware of them, right? So can you assign malfeasance to those people, incompetence to those people, ignorance to those people? So it's not really necessarily fair to label them wholly as evildoers, but I kind of think that you should be held to that higher standard. If you swear an oath and you carry a gun and a badge and in effect have the ability to take away people's freedom or their life, you should be paying attention better than that. So, I mean, we can grade them pretty harshly from my perspective. I just don't know if anybody shares that sentiment. I think that the majority of people, though, want to do their job. There's a contingency of people who really like are all about the mission and feel like they're very lucky to be there and they're gung ho. And I counted myself in that group, but then also at the same time was hyper aware of what was going on and monitoring it, making sure that I was always doing the right thing, which kind of made me an enemy of the organization.
Right.
And then there's the politically partisan people, or the people that are willing to use their power to affect the ends that they want. And I say that there's an intersection between them and the climbers, the people who we call blue flamers, that they're rising so high that they got the afterburners on. They're climbing the ladder so quickly that the flame is actually blue. They're throwing so much diesel and rocket fuel into it. And for those people, they never say no to a bad idea, which is evil, because it's good for their career. And they will do the worst things, even if politically they don't necessarily agree. It's just expedient for their career purposes, and they go along with it too. So percentage wise, I would say the worst actors, I mean, it's a single digit number, but they have an outsized level of influence because it's a much higher than single digit number within leadership ranks that are like that.
Right. Okay. And this kind of dovetails into a question I'm going to have for you later on in the program, because I've got a lot of questions about the old FBI director, Mr. Kash Patel, that I want to ask you. And one of them is kind of along the lines of what you just kind of walked into there. It's like, and maybe this is true of all of government jobs. Maybe it's definitely not unique to the FBI. Maybe the percentage is larger because they have more power. I don't know. But it's like, are these people, are they just bad seeds to begin with? Or does the job make them that? Does it exploit that weakness in them? I know it's not a simple answer, and you've already done a good job of laying out a good answer there. But it's just like, it doesn't matter which party is in power. If it's our guy at the top, my gosh, it's dirty, dirty, dirty. And we're sick and tired of this crap, man.
Well, the FBI specifically exploits weaknesses and vulnerabilities. They love compromised people. The number of people who are in positions of power and authority, allegedly, I mean, who knows, maybe somebody's pulling their strings, and I think in a lot of cases there are, who are compromised because they have some sort of extramarital affair. The amount of sexual malfeasance that occurs in the FBI, I mean, I can't speak to other government agencies, but it's got to exceed most of them. I mean, when I went to the FBI Academy as a brand new agent, I had to go drive from my house in Savannah, Georgia to Atlanta, which is a 4-hour drive, because I didn't trust FedEx to get the packet of information that I needed in order to go to the academy. And the other reason for that was to sit down with the applicant coordinator, the woman who had helped facilitate my hiring by the FBI, which took 4 years. And her parting thought to me was, when you go to the academy, don't have an affair. And I looked at her just kind of, was that serious? And she goes, it happens a lot. And I went there and I witnessed what went on. And that is with you forever, right? And then when you have that sort of malfeasance and you have to be able to pass a polygraph, you have to be able to not be an insider threat and have blackmail material on you. That goes both ways. They have that.
Right.
And that is the reason why you have some people in high levels of prominence who have the derogatory material. The FBI loves to have that, and then they just kind of go along because they're fearful of that coming out and ruining their turn at the trough here, where they're earning between $160,000 and $180,000 if they're an executive, with bonuses on top of that, and the ability afterwards when they retire to get a highly lucrative 3 or 4 times what they were making in the government job with a partner, a private public partner for the FBI.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. That's feels like that's how the CIA would operate too. But anyway, okay. I know years ago, it feels like it was during COVID or shortly after. Hell, I don't know. When did the COVID era end? But I know. So I remember these Chinese biolabs being discovered in California, and that went away. You know who else's laboratory thing went away was that eyebrows congressman who can't speak English up in Michigan with the beagles that were left behind. And anyway, what is it? Why the beagles? Why I got a cheagle down here at my feet? Why are they always picking on the docile beagles? I'm sick of that. Anyway, but the biolabs in California, there's an update there on that story, because I know it's been a while since I've heard about them.
There's multiple updates on the story, which is terrifying. So the background, for those who don't remember, is Reedley, California, where there was a code enforcement officer who happened to notice a green hose outside of a building that was supposed to be abandoned. Yes. And she went Magnum PI, like full on investigated, went up, realized there were lots of Chinese people wearing lab coats, and they had goggles and Bunsen burners, and over 1,000 mice that were humanized so that they would have the immune responses of humans. They had Ebola and vials.
It's like a freak show, man. And that's the thing. Like, I'm the first in line to say, all right, code enforcement officer, cut us some slack with those garden hose hanging out the side. Come on now. But yes, I had forgotten about that. Yeah. And so she discovered all this stuff, and then tell us the rest now.
Yeah. So the Senate wound up doing an investigation. So they effectively produce a report and nothing happens. But the cliff notes are 2 people get arrested there, and the DOJ charges the Chinese individual for coronavirus test kits. Not for the lab. They charge him with COVID tests, which is kind of a head scratcher. Now, it gets kind of nerdy with acronyms in it, but what you need to know is that 2 companies were sort of tied to this lab, okay? And they had a fire. So they call out saying, hey, we want to come check on you on the lab. The government's calling them and say, can we see if everything's on the up and up and safe? And the company responds back, well, actually, we sold all our business interests. We're shut down here. Meanwhile, they're running this off the books lab. And they said, all of our interests are actually in Las Vegas with a different company. No one follows up with it at all. It just left out there. Well, wouldn't you know, the update was a couple months ago, there was another Chinese lab found in Las Vegas. This company owned this second lab. Exact same thing. Bunch of Chinese people wearing lab coats with Bunsen burners, got some mice, got some suspicious vials filled in there. And they wind up charging another guy in there who is the landlord, who is an Israeli citizen with a French passport. And they get him because he has guns. He's not supposed to have guns.
Okay, so this is different than the Israeli guy in Las Vegas trying to hook up with a young girl.
Yes.
Okay, it's a different Israeli guy in Las Vegas.
This is a different guy.
Just making sure. Okay.
We're having to keep track of them. So like a really suspicious international connection there. So you have an Israeli and then you have a Chinese national. But in essence, our federal government, the FDA, They wouldn't follow up on the secondary lab. And this is after, on the heels of a Senate investigation. And the FBI could only bring charges for COVID tests, not for a bio lab that was unapproved in California and a second one now in Las Vegas. My question is, are we going to stop looking for biolabs again? Is this going to be like the pipe bombs where it's like, oh, well, we found 2, so it's probably it, right? Nobody's going to continue looking for it. I find it really hard to believe that they've been successful in establishing 2 of these locations, that there aren't more all over the country.
How, between the incompetence and the manufacturing of crimes in our own government and this kind of infiltration and this kind of obvious malfeasance brewing out there, like it's truly fascinating to sit here and think, how do we not have a tragedy a day? I just, thank you, God. I mean, seriously, I just don't even know how, because we are the world's #1 target to begin with, and then on top of all of this, the manufacturing of crimes, or like I said, the outright just stupidity in the ranks. I just, it's shocking that we're safe as we are.
I think we're safe in large part, almost accidentally or maybe intentionally,
Right.
by pop culture, because pop culture, TV and movies, there's always an FBI agent story. I mean, it's just a very interesting line of work, and it
Mm.
lends itself to these great stories, which can be very entertaining, but they're nowhere close to realistic. But it also generates this myth of competence, where you think that they're the best of the best. And that plays well for the FBI, for the American people, because they think, oh, these guys are awesome. We have no problem with them intruding on our civil liberties. We have no problem with funding them with billions of dollars. And we're going to accept everything they say because they're just the best. And I think simultaneously, the evildoers who are would-be enemies might think the same thing and say, well, certainly, I mean, take it out of the FBI context. Secret Service, same thing, right? Certainly, I would never crawl up a slightly sloped roof within 150 yards of the president, because I'll get smoked right away. And then somebody actually tries it one day. How many would-be assassins were like, darn it, I could have got that
Yeah.
shot off,
Seriously.
right? And I think
Seriously.
that's, I mean, a lot of that is because of the myth of competence.
Myth of competence. Steve Friend, ladies and gentlemen, is constantly coming up with the greatest one-liners, man, descriptors. What was the other one that? Oh my gosh, the process is the punishment.
The process is the punishment, and then we had malicious compliance last.
Malicious compliance. If y'all don't know these terms, you got to watch and listen to American Radicals podcast, or whenever Steve Friend is on here on At the Mic, because he lays them out, man. He's got them. He's got them. You gotta copyright some of these. Put them on T-shirts.
I put them on show titles on the American Radicals podcast for memorialization.
There you go. I like that. Okay, so what is Operation Box Cutter, and why have I not heard about that? In fact, I haven't heard anything, negative about box cutters since 9/11. What's going on here?
Well, that was a operation that the FBI was touting recently, that they had wound up charging people, and it dealt with fentanyl production from China. So, as background for this, a few months back, Kash Patel flew to China, which was very.
I thought you were going to say Nashville.
Oh no, that was last night. That was
Kyle Seraphin is updating us on.
That was last night.
Sorry,
when he
continue.
dropped his girlfriend off.
On the government dime. Just congratulations. You went to work today. You paid for a first-class ticket on a private jet. You had no idea. Continue, Steve. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You also paid for the full-time SWAT team that protects her.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, we can get into that. But the flight that he took to China, which was very expensive because they can't keep the plane in China. They're worried about the comms, communications, and electronics being subverted, right, and hacked. So they have to drop him off and fly to friendlier area, and then fly back to pick him up. And it's a very expensive trip. He signed some sort of agreement with China, and he came back touting it like Chamberlain having a signature with Hitler. I have an agreement from the Chinese that they're going to cooperate with us on fentanyl, right? And he said, we have just saved tens of thousands of lives. I mean, no further information, no proof, no statistics, unfalsifiable. And we have Operation Box Cutter. They have now arrested, I think it's three, it might be 4 Americans. And then they say we've indicted 22 Chinese nationals.
I love this.
4 Chinese companies. All of them, they're in China. So all those 22 nationals, the not Americans who get arrested, are in China and will never be arrested. The companies, they can't put out of business, so they're in China. And they relied heavily on Chinese intelligence in order to push this investigation along, because I guess they're taking it on face value that the Chi-Coms, who are sending the fentanyl over here, opium war style, are just giving the top-notch intelligence to the FBI. It's more pom-pom waving, gold sticker awarding, and they hope that you don't actually read the press releases, which the most recent one didn't include this. And I just remembered this case, and I happened to go back and do a little bit of Googling and found it. I was like, oh, yeah, it wasn't 3 people. It was 22. Oh, that's right, because they were all in China and unarrestable outside of our hammer of justice.
I think that is so important how you dropped the opium wars knowledge in there, because people don't understand that is the perfect analogy. What China is doing to the United States has already been done to China through the opium wars, the 1800s. I don't know when was that exactly? Late 1800s, right? Well, anyway, so I mean, they are doing to us. We're just, there's so much context there, and China has such a long-term vision that it's terrifying on its surface. And then you think, I'll probably only see a little bit of it in my lifetime, because that's a long-term plan. But what were you going to say? Because I want to make another.
No, I said just culturally, they think in a far longer term.
Yes, there you go. That's exactly.
We're TikTok culture, and their TikTok tells them to play musical instruments and do science experiments. Ours tells us to do Tide Pod challenges, and even our leaders are on a election cycle that lasts for 2 years. If China is thinking 10, 50, 100 years in the future.
Yeah. I like a year into it already, running for re-election again in many cases. Okay, but look, we need a pitch clock just to sit through a baseball game, and they're looking generations ahead. But you mentioned something there that I think it's overlooked, and until I started listening to your stuff, I absolutely overlooked it. You're driving in, you listen to the top of the hour news, and it says something like, the FBI has arrested 3 Americans and indicted, 22 Chinese nationals. And they go, oh, wow, they're staying busy. They're out there protecting me and my family. And then you listen to, and then later in the day, you listen to Steve, and they're like, yeah, they're all in China. They'll never be extradited to face charges. But keep telling everyone that you got 25 people busted here. Anyway, so that's just one of those fun facts that you learn when you listen to the American Radicals podcast. So Pam Bondi, since we last spoke, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, has has decided to go to the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
And
she can't spend time with her family because I don't think she has any.
So you can't put that in the press release. Mm-hmm. You got to say private sector. That's the hierarchy. The first choice is spend more time with my family. The second one might be health issues.
Health issues, yep.
Yeah, that's up there. Private sector. So those are it's going to be one of those 3. Whenever somebody in a prominent government position leaves before the end of a term. So we haven't talked since then, you and I. I'm surprised Fox News hasn't put out the press release yet, unless I missed it, that she's going to have her own show over there.
She's getting a contributorship like next week.
I mean, we know she has her own office, or at least a cubicle over there.
Then Ballard Partners will bring her right back so she can go back to lobbying.
Okay, see, look at that. Tell me, hold on. You know what? Let me throw this out there, because you made me think of this, but we'll get back to Pam Bondi. I put a tweet out yesterday. I'm sure it was genius how it was worded, but what I was trying to say is that the way I'll never find it, y'all. So I'm not stalling. scroll.
Sniffing like Cash Patel as you scroll.
Right. So, and the way I worded this was that, Congress will never hold itself to, and I'm just asking, this is off topic. I'm just asking because you're an intelligent guy, and I think you might have a strong opinion on this. Maybe he's like, what the hell is he about to ask me? The Congress can't get anything done that we want him to get done. Like, how about no more insider trading? Here's the tweet. We need a Congress for Congress to make laws for the, I told you it was worded beautifully, to make laws for the main Congress, their only function. That'd be the only function of this Congress. And I'm not talking about, 430. I'm talking about, let's just 25, right? In turn, the main Congress can make laws for this. I went and I found like some fancy schmancy sounding Latin type word, extras Congress, or maybe that's from a Harry Potter spell. Anyway, would stop insider trading for politicians, no slush fund for their harassment. Remember, all this stuff, right? It forced them to make a freaking budget. Maybe term limits, although I'm the only person in America, I think, who's against that. But a lot of great comments here. A lot of thoughtful folks follow me over on X at Keith Malinak. But I like this one from Riche Jr. Sure, that's what we need. More slime bags in D.C. But what was the one? Somebody said it's just going to set up more corruption. I mean, it's more people to corrupt up there. So I don't know. Is that stupid? Just, you can say it's just stupid and we can move on. Congress for the Congress.
I think you're thinking outside the box, and that's the only way that if you were going to try to give the old college try to fix it.
Yeah, you won't hurt my feelings if you tell me.
No, I mean, I think you got to go back and get rid of the Administrative Procedures Act of 1946, where the Congress effectively gave legislating ability to the executive branch because they didn't want to legislate anymore. They just wanted to run for re-election, and they just wanted to pass broad laws without any specifics that say that this agency shall regulate the waterways. And then the EPA says there's a puddle in the backyard. And that's 1946. And then I think, why don't we, as much as we're talking about insider trading and opportunity, what if we just made the paycheck for being a member of Congress like $5 to $10 million? That would attract a higher level of people who are uber competent. I'm not saying they're good, but at least they're going to be higher intelligence people, because right now we've got essentially midwits. We've got people who are one chapter ahead of the book than the people who are voting for them. So the people who are voting for them are thinking, well, this guy knows his stuff. He knows all the stuff that I know, plus some. Not that much more. They're just a little bit better communicators. They know a little bit more than the most people. But if you had some actual sharks out there, some apex predators who are like, I'm going to use my intellect to go get $10 million. That's a drop in the bucket in the federal budget. And you could also make it contingent on they need to do certain things. You get a finder's fee, you get a success fee. $10 million or nothing. A contingency like lawyers do. You're all lawyers anyway. You work on contingency. You don't get paid unless you pass a budget. Done. Balanced budget.
I like that. Actually, I do like that. It's almost impossible to believe that it wasn't that long ago, kids. I'm talking the 1990s that we had budget surpluses 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind blowing to think that. Anyway, okay. So back to Pam Bondi. So what do you think precipitated that? What are your thoughts on that in this? And I agree. I saw in the comments there. Susan said that she doesn't think Blanche is going to do any better. Man, that guy, when you watch a press conference with him, he's so combative. It's like, chill out, bro.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not going to be any better. We're about 5 minutes away. I'm sorry. Depends on how long it takes to get back there. Have you seen the stock market in a while? I was about to say we're about 5 minutes away from a 50,000 Dow quote from him, but it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah. The sycophancy is high, and that's what Donald Trump did. He populated a lot of people in the Department of Justice from his legal teams. Pam Bondi was, I think she represented him in the impeachment, the first one. She was on that team. And then you had Blanche, who was in the Manhattan trial, Emil Bove. Even Cash Patel was out there testifying in grand juries for the voter stuff. And as a result, they know that they have to express fealty to the dear leader. And I call it the MAGA land acknowledgement. So whenever you're asked a question, You have to say, first and foremost, I want to thank our great and amazing president. And that's the same way that we acknowledge that we're standing on stolen ground if you're a communist, right?
That is awesome. Continue, please. Yes.
So Pam Bondi came in with a generational opportunity to defang the attack dog that is the Department of Justice, specifically like an FBI, and completely didn't do it. Just said, well, we can get power for our purposes. And that's Tolkien teaches us that can't be done. And instead, I think the millstone around her neck, and as it is around all of the Epstein administration at this point, neck is the Epstein case, right?
Wait, did you just call it the Epstein administration?
Yeah. As long as we're on the topic of new terms,
yes,
I'm going to be introducing this tomorrow.
Oh.
The Let's Go Brandon equivalent is the Epstein administration, because it needles them. They have all the institutional power, and they will have steam coming out of their ears when you say it.
Holy crap. I love that.
And it's not insulting. It's just me saying, I know you're lying. I know you're lying. Let's go, Brandon.
This is why Steve is such a smooth. See, the FBI agents, because he made it almost felt like it was an honest mistake. No, he's just that smooth. And look, I think it's part and parcel for everyone in the Epstein administration to be like, I'm sorry, what was that? I love that. Anyway, all right, so continue on. This is great stuff on Pam Bondi.
Her mandate of the American people wanted was the Epstein list, not because the Epstein list gave us so much, because it is salacious. It is really important, the specifics of that case. But the ultimate fundamental question is, do we have a two-tiered system of justice? We need to have that question adjudicated for us in this administration. Will you give us that answer? And she punted as long as possible. She filibustered. Oh, it's on my desk. Oh, I'm going to do Bindergate. And she embarrassed herself, and she embarrassed those influencers who got really mad. And then she said on Fox News, when she was auditioning for the contributorship, I had a mole tell me that those files are in the Southern District of New York in the United States Attorney's Office. To which I say, the mole is your subordinate, the employee who works for you, which means that you need employees to be moles. That means you don't control the Department of Justice. Then she continued to filibuster, and we took it into the summer months, into July, over the July 4th weekend, flooding in Texas, nobody paying attention. That's when they dropped into Axios, we're closing the case. There's no file list. We're not going to be doing anything. But they were not smart with it, because that got rid of their cover for action that said ongoing investigation. We can't reveal that information right now. And that's when Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie and all the others were like, well, it's done. Turn it over to us. There's nobody bad. You got to give it. They waited and waited. We finally get the Transparency Act, the Epstein Transparency Act, through, almost unanimous, signed immediately by the president, who didn't want to sign it, who didn't want it, but he yielded to pressure. He acquiesced. He is a populist. He knew that people wanted it. And still the directive was, don't hand it over. Don't hand it over. She fought and fought and fought, tooth and nail, and eventually just did the malicious compliance thing, handed out millions of documents, which is not all of the documents. At best, it's half, but it's nowhere close to that. In a giant pallet dump, like you would do if you were a Barack Obama with cash on a pallet to Iran. And it was disorganized and contained information in it that was erroneous and from crazy people. And they basically just threw their hands up and said, you all deal with it. We're done here. And then that didn't pass muster. So Pam Bondi had to go, and she committed the ultimate sin. And she publicly embarrassed the president. Her ability to communicate was always lacking. As much auditioning as she does for Fox News, she's just not a great communicator. She's not able to stand up there, talk off the top of her head, pull the words and the ideas out. And she embarrassed herself. And that's when we got the Dow was at 50,000, which was a complete non sequitur, right? I think I said to the effect of, the impression that I do of her is, Donald Trump is the most transparent president since ever. And the Dow's at 50,000. You can't do enough MAGA land acknowledgments at that point to cover. And they wanted to see if they could, off the millstone around her neck, find her a nice, comfortable landing place over at Fox, back at Ballard Partners. We'll bring in Todd Blanche, who's a much better communicator. He's more authoritative. He's very combative, and that's what Trump likes. He actually looks the part. He's a litigator. I don't think Pam Bondi really was a litigator. And then we just got from him on Fox News with, was it Jesse Waters? He said, we're done with Epstein. As much time as we spent on it last year, I want to see the inverse of it this year. So he's going to continue to do that too. So the question ultimately that I'll throw back to you, Keith, is I think Pam Bondi failed with Epstein. My question is, did she fail at covering it up enough? Or did she fail at revealing it enough? She chose the middle of the road and got run over by a tractor trailer. She had to pick a lane.
So that was kind of my next question was going to be for you. Do you think she was in on the cover up from the beginning, or was she just kind of like, I need you in my office for 5 minutes. I got to lay it down here for you and how you're going to proceed. Do you think that that was more the likely scenario?
I think that as the attorney general, it's largely ceremonial. I think that she probably was told things and just took that information because she just wanted to move on and not think about it. Now, there could have been a directive. I do suspect that our president wants Epstein done. I mean, he was the one saying, like, are we still talking about Epstein? I think he has friends in there. He wants it done. So she was probably trying to do MAGA land acknowledgement in action and cover as long as she could. But as far as knowing the intricate details, I don't think she's looked at it. Anytime any one of these high-ranking principals, be it the attorney general or the FBI director, the former co-deputy director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, when he got up there, they always say the same thing. I've been briefed on everything with this file. That's a big deal. You were briefed. You know the word brief? It means short. It means that somebody looked at all the stuff and gave you the wave tops, the 30,000-foot view. So you haven't seen it all. But when you say it quickly, people think, oh, well, he's seen the whole file. No, he's been briefed on the whole file. Well, who's the briefer? Those are the entrenched bureaucrats. Those are the people that are in that 1% demographic who are the evildoers, who are doing what they can to protect the agency or to get their political ends that they want. And they're the ones that are providing the information to the principals to then take out and embarrass themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I often wonder when someone is in a position like that, because in fact, oh, here it is right here. There we go. A lot of times on the Wednesday wild card, I like to do a little Keith book club. And shame on me because I don't know if somebody borrowed this book from me or if I just lost it in my pile of crap over there. But this book here that I'm going to talk about at some point, I'll just briefly say when you've read a book like The Gatekeepers by Chris Whipple, yes, I know he's a liberal. I don't care. It's behind the scenes. It's awesome. And it's just the chiefs of staff for the presidents from, I think this starts at Ford and goes right up until the first Trump administration. But when we see these public figures like a Pam Bondi, and I could sit here and name so many, that how many of them are just taking the fall and looking like idiots because they're the good soldiers, and how many of them are just incompetent? Like it's hard to know, and every case is different, and so that's why with Pam Bondi, I just don't know if she was. But like you said earlier, he knew her well long before she was in that role as attorney general. So she probably was part of the interview process, hiring process was and when Epstein comes back up, this is what you're going to like. I don't know. But that's what I wanted to ask you is, first of all, why did was Matt Gaetz just not going to be approved? Because he was the first choice for that role. Do we think that he would have done a different job, a better job? Why did that just vaporize like that?
I mean, maybe it's assigning more credit than is due, but if I had to put a theory out there, I think that Matt Gaetz was going to be a bridge too far for all the Democrats and a lot of the Republicans. It was almost a troll, but it was a useful troll. Now, from what I understand, Matt Gaetz went into the office and pitched himself by saying, like, I'm going to lop off effing heads. I don't know if that's true or not. I would have loved to see it. But if we put this guy out there, he can absorb all of the wrath. And we can maybe get through the other people like the RFK or the Tulsi Gabbard or anybody who's controversial. And then he doesn't really want the job or is not expecting the job. He even left Congress. So I think he's probably done with Washington, D.C. anyway, and went on and he's got a TV deal. And then he lives in Florida some of the time. He lives in California. I think he's a very well-off family too. So he's just very comfortable. So he kind of did that as a kamikaze mission. This is my theory. And then Donald Trump really likes blonde women of a certain age, and that's Pam Bondi, and she was the attorney general in Florida. So she does have that bona fide,
Yeah.
and could come in and do it. Now, I mean, I was even just curious because I looked it up. You don't have to be an attorney to be the attorney general.
Wow.
There's never not been an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And it says it's very 1700s, this language, like somebody who's learned in the law, but that doesn't, I mean, I'm learned in the law. All right. So
Okay.
as far as finding somebody out there, they're not doing casework as an attorney general. I'm kind of surprised we don't have more of an administrator, somebody who's highly aggressive at reorganizing the whole thing. I mean, I'd love to see an Elon Musk be the attorney general, not because he's going to bring cases, but because he could streamline that thing.
Okay. Look, I'm here for that. That would be a lot of fun. They have to get approved though. That's what sucks. Mm-hmm. That's what sucks. I just want to say, greatest audience ever is the At the Mic audience, and Born Genius. Thank you for every time I mention a book, she puts up the title of the book there, The Gatekeepers: How the White House Chiefs of Staff Define Every Presidency by Chris Whiffle.
That's the type of book that people put on their coffee table and to imply just how smart they are, but you actually read it. Good for you.
I'm the world's slowest reader, and I couldn't put this thing down.
Did it take the place of Decision Points by George W. Bush in the Malinak household?
Time out. Look, I can only... I'm going to throw my 100-year-old grandmother under the bus just slightly here. I love her to death, and she loves reading still at this age.
Same here.
And she has this. She'll get this book, and that was recently. So when I come over there, she'll have like stack of mail that she's gotten that I need to go through, bills, stuff like that. Take this and whatever, and then she'll put a book that she's ordered from Amazon or something like that. She has us order for her anyway. And then when she's done reading it, I know when I order it, like, oh, it's going to end up in the stack one day. So I come over there recently. It's so funny you said that, because underneath the mail was she's like, and then take that book too. And I was like, please don't let it be Decision. Oh, it's Decision Points. It's the Bush book. Okay, thanks. Half price books is going to enjoy buying that back. No, I'm sorry. No, we're going to totally read it, Nana. Totally. Okay.
All right. I'll admit, Keith, I read it. I read Decision Points. I did.
How was it?
I mean, it's presenting himself very favorably for obvious reasons. I mean, it's his memoir, but with the exception of the what was it? The AIDS aid that he goes off for a really long time about it.
He goes in 2008 and he goes over and starts doing his crazy dancing.
Yeah, and that's kind of odd, but I ultimately came away with, I disagree with this dude on a lot of stuff, but I think he was approaching it from somebody who didn't hate the country, whereas I think Barack Obama hated the country.
Yeah.
So the motivations aside, and they both did a crappy job. So I'm a results guy, but like, I could hang out with that guy. Like it wouldn't offend my sensibilities.
Yeah. No, I don't doubt that. I will say though, perfect segue. Where's my because yesterday I was talking about Iran or something. I don't know what started the discussion, but and this is what we do on Wednesdays. We take side roads, and I'm gonna come right back here. Just bear with me. But I realized that let me go back to 2003. 2003, my instinct, and this has nothing to do with Iran right now, y'all. Okay, it might when we have the conversation, but 2003, my gut instinct on Iraq initially was I was against it. Okay, but if I had to place a vote in Congress, I would have voted to go to Iraq. Okay, based on the evidence that was presented. That was a tough decision for me, but I ultimately agreed, let's go to Iraq. Okay, now, clearly, 20-something years later, we're like, okay, let's revisit that. And I have discovered over the years, mostly in recent years, the incredible amount of lies that were sold to people like me from the Bush administration. that I can't get over. And I thought, you know what, yesterday it hit me in this tweet thread. I was like, you know, I need to do a show. We need to we need to have a presentation on the lies that were sold to the American public to get us into war in Iraq. And that's what we're going to do on the Thursday deep dive in a couple of weeks now. And I am so excited to have that conversation, because there is so much that I have learned from various voices in recent years. And one book in particular that was very helpful. And we're going to have this conversation a couple of weeks on the deep dive. So anyway, that's Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. Sorry to get on that little tangent there, but I don't disagree with you that he'd be fun to have a beer with, or go to the I'd like to sit in that I don't know what it's called. Crawford Box. Is that? No, that's maybe that's Houston. I can't remember anymore. But right there behind home plate there. I mean, I want to sit there with him at a Rangers game. I don't even care who they're playing. It could be the A's. It doesn't matter. Anyway. But there you go. That's where we're at, though. What you said there is so sad that that's where we're at. And I've said the same thing about Trump. I've said, you know what? It's nice that we have a president who doesn't hate America for a change, because we had 8 years of Obama, 4 of Biden, and even Bill Clinton didn't like a lot of this country. But the difference between a Bill Clinton presidency, man, you talk about tangents, Malinak. The difference between a Bill Clinton presidency and a Barack Obama presidency is Obama just hated America. Bill Clinton was he was from that self-interested generation. He was just a selfish kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like he just go with the flow, whatever. Now, of course, he did betray the. You know what? This is getting way off tangent here.
Well, I mean, you got to do the blind test, right? Like if you had a candidate come out, look, we're in the midterm year, but let's just flash forward, because we're always in election season, 2028. If you had a candidate who, and it's not aspirational, guaranteed that this would happen. All right, I'm going to cut the budget to $2 trillion. All right, I'm going to deport more illegal aliens than have ever been deported. I'm going to have a balanced budget. And I'm going to be harder on abortion than anybody in recent memory.
Okay.
Do you vote for Bill Clinton?
Oh, nice. Look, I like what you did there. Oh, sorry. I was Googling how much money, and I'll get back to your question there. How much money does the federal government spend approximately every year?
About 7
Over
trillion.
7 trillion. And the 2 trillion, I think where was it in the Bush administration? I think it was late in the Bush administration. We were still at 2 trillion a year. You're saying we're going to go back to a two-front war budget of 2 trillion. And you talk about being Overton windowed.
We were at 4 trillion before coronavirus.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, you talk about being Overton windowed into Bill Clinton. I'll never forget when I was sitting in the McDonald's in Clinton, New Jersey, and I'm sitting there and I look up and it's a press. They're in the press room. Obama's president, and he turns over the microphone to Bill Clinton. And I feel like in hindsight, I feel like that meme with Leonardo DiCaprio. Yes, make that guy the president again, please. But in the 90s, I mean, I'm this geeky teenager who's like, oh, this is the worst time in American history.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
We could have had Bob Dole. It would have been so much better.
Oh, yeah. I need a pen here and do my Bob Dole impersonation. I mean, I miss Norm Macdonald so much, man. Okay. So a lot of tangents there. I don't know how we got there, but this book, Gatekeepers, go check it out. Okay. So Pam Bondi, Matt Gaetz, I think you're right. He would have absorbed a lot of fire during the nomination process, specifically. Didn't everybody get through that stuck around for a vote? Like, no vote defeated anyone. A few people withdrew.
There might have been some withdrawals, but I think everybody that made it to the vote, because they had the numbers. And really at that point, you were relying on a couple of Republicans like the Collins and the Murkowskis and the Tillises, and they were okay with enough of them. I think they expended a lot of their own political capital on a Matt Gaetz, because the instant reaction to it, that they were all out there on social media and screaming about it, and the guy never actually went to a hearing.
There you go. Okay. Is Washington D.C. I'm going to do another tangent here. I don't even think it's fixable. Like, and when I say it, I mean anything in DC. Like, it's all beyond repair. It's demoralizing. You know what? Don't answer that. Let me go to my next question, which isn't going to be much better now that I think about it. No, actually, I don't want to get to this stuff yet. Hang on. I still have did I tell me about, because you mentioned on your show last week something about Amazon taking down your friend. Does that ring a bell? Because you mentioned it in passing. I was like, I got to get more information. What was that all about?
Amy Nelson, a friend of mine, acquaintance. I met her right after my name became public and found out about her family's story, which is utterly atrocious. So Amy Nelson, her husband, his name is Carl worked for Amazon. And he left Amazon to go pursue his own real estate ventures, had their permission and all of that. And then as it came to find out, when the FBI knocked on their door at 6 o'clock in the morning with search warrants, he was being investigated and eventually indicted and charged with honest services fraud, which is one of the worst, overly broad federal laws possible, Keith. Honest services fraud is you just are a crummy employee, and that's a federal crime. I mean, essentially, that's what it means. And because she's an attorney and a absolute bulldog and refused to bend the knee to this government, they seized the family's wealth entirely. Civil asset forfeited everything they owned, left them with no money, took the money out of the attorney's coffers who they'd retained, took the money out of her father, who they were financially providing, his bank account, to pressure him, her husband, Amy's husband, Carl, to plead guilty to this charge. The federal government got two of his former colleagues and did the same thing to them and got them to plead guilty and said, if you plead guilty and testify against Carl, then we'll give you a sweetheart deal. And then she found out that the Amazon lawyers lobbied Department of Justice. It's in records that she uncovered 100 times. They sent attorneys to the Department of Justice who they used to work for, because that's what happens. They left DOJ and went to work for Amazon. They went back to their buddies and said, we need you to charge Carl Nelson with a crime. And essentially what it boils down to was Amazon needed somebody who was in their employ at a certain period of time to be charged with a crime in order to negate and nullify some contract. Then it would be a dead letter. And that would get them out of this contract that they were not happy with at this point. They fought and fought and fought for years, got it to a judge. The judge looked at the case and said, this is such an egregious abuse and a miscarriage of justice. This case is tossed, and I'm tossing out the guilty pleas from the other guys too. And completely exonerated Carl. And the DOJ still wouldn't give them their money back. So they negotiated with the federal government and signed basically NDAs, not NDAs, we're going to promise to not sue you if you give us 80% back of the money that is already ours. And I know Amy. I got her in contact with people who are currently in the Epstein administration. You have to do something for this woman. It was on the slide deck that my buddies and I prepared for Kash Patel as being examples of FBI weaponization. These people need to see justice. And she's been left, her family's been ignored. Now, they've been ignored in a good sense that there's no more, from what we know, criminal prosecutions or investigations of them, but they never saw themselves made whole.
I tell you, I mean,
they have 4 little girls.
The deep state is undefeated. Evil, it feels like, is undefeated. It's tragic. It's so sad. I mean, you are sapping time, wealth, happiness, energy, just by this behemoth government that when you hear stories like that, it's hard to tell the difference between the United States and the rest of the world. Oh, don't say that, Keith. Yeah, when you're living the lives that people he says the Nelsons And people like Steve Friend himself, Steve won't say it, so I'll say it for him. When you're living the experiences that they are having as American citizens going up against this federal monster, evil monster, and Brian Cole Jr., who we're going to get into, I mean, that it's so demoralizing. And you think back of all the things you taught your kids, and you think, holy crap, I taught them lies, man. That's my bad. It's just okay. You have something else on this, or do you want me to move on? I'm sorry. This is just pissing me off.
Amy Nelson, you should know, she's got a Twitter profile. She's actually bigger on TikTok. She had a fairly sizable TikTok, and she was able to push out messages about it all the time, to the point where the DOJ tried to put a gag order on her TikTok.
Why? That's interesting.
She's the wife of the subject, but you know.
Isn't that interesting how the government seeks to shut people up that they just disagree with? Again, something we'll get into here in just a second. Is it, I'm just looking here. It's not Amy. Yeah, Amy K. Nelson. I am. Oh, she follows me. I follow her. Perfect. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, cool. I need to pay closer attention to that account then. She's living the experience.
And you should know her background. She was an Obama bundler.
Oh my goodness.
She came from like the granola eating left, and they were living in Seattle. I mean, they were healthily on the left and became very red pilled about government weaponization. Allegedly, that's what Todd Blanche, that was the genesis of his move from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party, defending Donald Trump against weaponized government.
The irony, it's so thick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I know that one of the things that you are big at keeping us abreast of is the FISA renewal. Tell us what's going on there.
Well, we're waiting. The FISA renewal is up on the 20th. April 20th is when FISA expires. But there was the recent hearing. The intelligence community came in to the Senate to testify. You had Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel and John Ratcliffe, all these different principals within the IC who were testifying, and the question arose about FISA. And it came out that President Trump favors a clean renewal of FISA 702. And then you have all these stalwarts of conservatism, small government guys like Jim Jordan, Jim spelled with a G, saying, well, I was against FISA before, but now that Trump's in office, I'm going to vote for it. So my guess is they're going to go with a full reauthorization, clean, maybe attach it to a Department of Homeland Security funding bill so nobody gives it too much scrutiny. But there's a couple of elements that people need to know. And I know that the claim is that there were 50 some odd reforms put into the last renewal 18 months ago, and that those have been sufficient.
And remind people real quick that maybe aren't familiar, what does FISA do?
So FISA 702 is a counterintelligence tool. It allows your government to surveil electronics and communications of a non-American when they are in not American. They're OCONUS and working on behalf of another government. So we want to find out what this Chinese spy who's living in China is doing. We can look at his communications. Well, communications are two ways, right? There's a recipient and a sender. And you should know also, before I get to that, if that Chinese guy comes to America, we have to turn it off. We can't listen to him when he's in America because it says they have to be out of America. Now, when he goes back to China, we can turn it back on and check his spam box or trash folder of his email, right? So there are ways around it to get it. But communications are two ways. So a lot of times that individual would be communicating with an American. Does it necessarily involve espionage? No, it could just be random emails or calls, could be spam emails, what have you. And that gets collected. That's called incidental collection. Now, what the FBI and the federal government have contended is that because that information was gathered legally via FISA, they can look at it even though it's an American without a warrant. And FISA 702, when it was renewed, yep, you can do that. On top of that, the federal government can purchase publicly available information that you put out there. So if you have a Gmail account, yeah, well, it's free. If it's free, that means you're the product. It means all the data that Google is gathering on you they can sell because you checked yes on the user agreement. The FBI can purchase that information because of FISA. So that means that the government steals, taxes money from you to fund an agency which takes that money and turns around and buys information on you. So you've funded your own demise. That's what FISA has on the table right now. And then when you combine it with, and we can even link it to the Kash Patel leaks, with the counterintelligence capabilities that exist within an FBI, which is authorized to open up a case on anyone. They don't even have to be a foreign spy. They can open up a case, full investigation with full ability to send subpoenas out, search warrants, get all that information because they think you could be the victim of an intelligence operation. Well, we think the Russians are trying to recruit Keith because he has key access. Well, let's open up a case on Keith.
Oh, he drinks vodka too. That's probably a tell, I'd say.
So this is a tool, and it's being used to justify the war on drugs, which, again, it's a counterintelligence tool. So it has nothing to do with drug cartels, but now we're labeling them foreign terrorist organizations, so we need it. And now we're seeing the president coming out saying, well, we need it because of the kinetic operation, definitely not a war, in Iran. How dare you call me a stewardess? I'm a flight progress coordinator.
Ignore the bell. That's a Friday artifact back there. Okay. Yeah, that's fun because, when it's our guys that have all of the levers of
and look, I'm hardly championing the Democrats who are all now against renewing FISA. I'm just saying the enemy of my enemy is the enemy of my enemy, and we can have some cross-sectional interests here, or intersecting interests. You don't want FISA, I don't want FISA, but I didn't want FISA before. You can be my ally right now.
And how long is this renewal supposed to be for?
Well, that's going to be the ultimate question. I think that they will probably push it out beyond the next election cycle. So then you're looking at probably a 3-year renewal, something to that effect.
It's just incredible. And that segues nicely. You kind of gave us a little foreshadowing. This Kash Patel emails being hacked by the Iranians, that happened when he was the nominee, and I was as loud as anybody. Yes, make Kash Patel the FBI director. So why is this story of the Iranians hacking his email, or at least what was it? No, I'm sorry. The report last November was that the FBI. Hell, let Steve tell it, Keith.
Yeah. Well, it was reported November of 2024. So after the election, before the inauguration, but Kash Patel had been named as the likely nominee. And it was reported that the Iranians had hacked into him and that they had gotten this information. We didn't know what the information was. So the new revelation we just got was some of the information that they were able to glean, which might be his porn habits. And he seems to take lots of pictures having parties, but he's not with anybody. So he seems a little bit lonely and pathetic.
Is some of the stuff out there where I see him dancing, is that real?
No, I think that's artificial intelligence, but the Spider Cash thing is definitely very weird, where he's using Spider Cash as his account name. And then you look at his ridiculous challenge coin that he had made for himself, which is a Punisher logo and it has a spider in the eye sockets. So I think that's accurate. So what you should know is, again, this was revealed before the inauguration. What you should appreciate, though, is this is a foreign entity who was hacking a would-be individual with access to the soon-to-be president. He is a likely victim of an intelligence operation. That would be, the Iranians would try to coerce or co-opt Kash Patel to give them valuable information about Donald Trump, right? He could be a likely victim. Right. Well, that means the FBI opened up a full counterintelligence investigation on Kash Patel.
The Joe Biden FBI.
Yes, and the current FBI would still be doing it, and they do it to everybody, which might explain his quick descent into being the douche that he is right now, because maybe he walked in and said, hey, it sure be a shame if everybody found out about Spider Cash and the other stuff. that could be, in fact, I don't think that Kash Patel is a man of character. I think he willingly went along with it. But the overall point is the FBI had access to all this information as well.
You do wonder. Again,
Mike Johnson. But take Mike Johnson, right?
Okay.
He went back completely 180 on the FISA renewal. He was,
right.
I'm killing FISA.
Right.
And then he went into the skiff and got a briefing that Thomas Massey's come out and said, I was in the briefing. There was nothing in there that was revelatory at all. I don't know what the heck he's talking about.
Yeah.
But do you think the Speaker of the House might be the victim of a intelligence operation? Might be the victim that they could look at?
I'm telling you.
Was he shown something in the skiff about himself that they had access to?
There's so much that's shocking that we forget about. That's because there's so much shocking stuff that happens. You just said that, and I was like, oh, that's right. I remember when I saw that, and I thought, what the hell? Because he's standing in the hallway there at the Capitol explaining his change. And you're like,
he was the deciding vote to make it a tie. The Speaker never votes traditionally unless it's a tie. They kind of do the J.D. Vance vice president thing. You have to break the tie. And he didn't have to vote because it was going to go away. He voted in order to make it a tie. And he voted to make it a tie so that the warrant requirement wouldn't pass for FISA.
This is John Roberts' Obamacare ruling.
Oh, no, that was genius. It was a secret plan along the whole way. John Roberts, who... Hey, do you ever find out who leaked the Dobbs decision? That was one of the promises that Dan Bongino made when he was the co-deputy director of the FBI for 292 days. We're going to get the Dobbs leaker, even though that's not illegal. We got to get it. We got to get it. It was John Roberts, right? Can we all kind of surmise that that's what it was?
We were also supposed to get, I was told that we were getting close to revealing the White House drugs that were found. That was the other thing I was told was going to happen. And then the J6 pipe bomber.
Yeah, those are the three promises. Those are the three promises. Dobbs
well, we got one of them, right?
Sure did. See that cocaine sniff. I think the cocaine belonged to the Biden dog. Because Commander was biting everybody. They had to remove him from
They had to remove him, Look, dogs are reflective of their owners.
That's true.
So I want to say, so you know what? My dogs are loud, but they're generally kind, and always tired. I'm telling you. They reflect. Although that new one she's a little hellion. Okay, so
that's why I don't have dogs. I don't need to give away the cards and playing close to the vest here.
Seriously, I would never play poker. Would you play poker with me? Because I see back in South Carolina, we used to play poker every week, or I don't know. Every other week. The guys that I played with were really cool. They let me have like a little Post-it note cheat sheet. And so
I would need one. I don't know the rules of poker.
Okay. That'd be fun. You and I play poker. Be like, hang on a second. I think I got something. I got 3 of this color. So that's how I played. And they let me. I invented a game. It was called 3-card Mally. You could do 5-card Mally. I don't remember the rules. I just remember I invented them while drinking. Okay, so let's see here. So we just talked about the J6 pipe bomber, which I don't know if this audience has noticed, but our mutual friend has been in the news quite a bit lately. Yeah. So our buddy Steve Baker was fired by my employer and his until early last week. The Blaze. And that's a whole mess over there with that. But, typically when the government meddles with stuff, bad things happen. And in fact, is it on the printer? What is it? Oh, here, I got it. I'm sorry. I couldn't remember. I printed up this story. Where are my glasses? I have 3 glasses up. I swear none of them are good. I've been putting them on and on. I think this is not good. Hang on a second. Here we go. Here's what everybody's been talking about from Steve, because Steve Baker, he started a website called Veritas. It's too fancy for me. VeritasRegnat.com. I think that means
truth reigns.
Yes.
That's
okay.
what it means in Latin.
Then make it Truth Reigns. Go check and see GoDaddy. Is truthreigns.com available? Anyway, so the Veritas Regnat, just go to Steve Baker's X deal, Steve Baker USA. This paragraph people are picking up on here. In early November, FBI Director Kash Patel phoned Blaze founder Glenn Beck and sought to have Baker fired. This was days before Baker appeared on the Glenn Beck program to promote the November 8th investigative article. Now, first I'll say, Steve Friend, you have some personal experience with Kash Patel and job termination that maybe you will want to enlighten people that may not be familiar with your situation. But what do you make of that singular paragraph there from the Steve Baker story?
Unsurprising in light of the connection between that and my own firing, because they were scrambling, and the timing of it is, we'll say, serendipitous, because the story as it goes is that Shawnee Kirkhoff, the individual who Steve Baker and Joe Hanneman alleged matches the gate analysis for the pipe bomber from January 5th/6th, failed a polygraph. She failed a polygraph while in the employ of the CIA, because after working for the Capitol Police, she went to work for the CIA. She still works for the CIA. That doesn't happen. But she fails a polygraph. Her name emerges from their story and their reporting. And then in short order, the FBI starts and spins up an investigation of her. And then a couple days go by, and not only does a call get made from Kash Patel, as it's being reported here to Glenn Beck, you have former co-deputy director for 292 days, Dan Bongino, placing calls to Tom Massey, essentially telling him they're trying to clear her. And meanwhile,
Say that again. The deputy director, you say 292 days it was?
Well, former co-deputy director, because
Okay.
he sucked so bad that he had to be side-saddled to Andrew Bailey.
Side-saddled. Okay, and so he said what now?
He told Tom Massey that the FBI was trying to clear Shawnee Kirkhoff.
Why is the FBI
which is
trying
not
to
the
clear
job
anybody?
of the FBI. Their job is to just investigate and find out what happened.
Huh. Okay.
And he also told Massey he was going to fund a lawsuit, a defamation lawsuit on her behalf as the co-deputy director of the FBI.
That's weird.
So some problems here for just the intimidation for the nation's lead law enforcement agency to have their top two, or the top guy and then the top half of a guy, making calls to members of Congress and to people within media trying to kill this story, is wholly inappropriate. That is the tailor-made case example of weaponized government.
What would be the motivation of the government to even get involved with that if that's where the facts were leading?
Because the facts were leading there, and they did not want those facts to emerge, because there's a narrative that has to be maintained. So this goes back to a prior story that Joe Hanneman and Steve Baker broke, and they were leaning on this. And the narrative was clear. It was going to come out in October of last year that the pipe bombs were a training exercise. And my buddy Kyle Seraphin and I and Joe Hanneman did a podcast together, and we talked about it. And we, all three of us, and Kyle and me specifically, because we have experience in law enforcement, just blew that narrative to pieces. It made no sense, because if there was a training exercise, they would immediately come out afterwards and said, like, hey, no, why is there a reward? Like, that was us, guys. You know, if it was an honest mistake, right? There was all these problems with it. So then it became panic time when the Shawnee Kirkhoff, who was already being surveilled, was put in front of a polygraph and failed. And then they said, oh no, now the entire plot is going to come out, and the plot going to be likely to the effect of, it was a giant government plot where you had multiple agencies involved, where Capitol Police was planting pipe bombs, the ATF was clearing those pipe bombs, the FBI was doing mop-up duty, the CIA was hiding the likely culprit of it within their employ. You had the recovery of the pipe bombs by Capitol Police officers who on video found the pipe bombs within 11 minutes, faster than the dogs could. They leave and immediately go to the one place that the pipe bomber sat at for 30 seconds, look under there, and then the pipe bomber had moved the pipe bomb from there to a second location. So they immediately go to the other place, and then they stop looking. If you had found two pipe bombs, would you stop looking? No, they stopped looking. And then one of those guys is now a liaison between the FBI and the Capitol Police. Then you had the lead investigator for Thomas Massey, who has been on it since the beginning. The lead investigator for him, Marshall Yates, was hired by the FBI as an assistant director for congressional affairs. Marshall Yates, who did not have to pass a polygraph because Kash Patel gave him a waiver for that, like he did for Dan Bongino, then called Tom Massey and said that I'm going to charge members of your staff with crimes that they keep doing this pipe bomb stuff. So lots of smoke involved here. And it implicates the government across the board. And they have to do the Nancy Pelosi thing. They have to preserve the narrative of January 6th because that would implicate the government and would necessitate, if everything I'm saying here is borne out, the American people are going to say, oh, you guys did a Reichstag fire, so this agency has to go away. There's no redemption. We can't say, okay, you messed up on that one Amy Nelson case, but it was probably a couple of bad actors. No, it has to be dissolved. And that would be FBI, Capitol Police, ATF, CIA, ODNI, DOJ. All of them would have to lose their fiefdoms. So what's the easier option? Bite the bullet and lose the accoutrements of having a private jet that you can go on a booty call to Nashville anytime you want? Or spike the story, find a patsy who happens to be an autistic My Little Pony fan who doesn't physically resemble the pipe bomber in any way, shape, or form, and then lead the American people on a narrative that this 30-year-old who goes to 7-Eleven to buy himself a Coke and a pizza slice every day because he's so regimented and can barely speak, that he eluded an $11 billion law enforcement agency, the greatest preeminent premier law enforcement agency for the country for half of a decade, having never changed his habit of life and having used his own car and credit card and cell phone. And he's on video driving at times when the pipe bomber's walking, but he's our man. So we have to find a crime.
Weren't some of the bomb-making materials purchased by this Brian Cole fella after January 6th?
They were purchased before the election that he allegedly was protesting with his pipe bombs. Okay. And then he told the FBI that he threw them all away afterwards. And then he went and bought more of the exact same pipe bomb making material.
I don't get it.
His shoe size is a 12 and the pipe bomber's a 9. The pipe bomber's walking around adjusting a bra. I mean, it is 2026, so I don't want to assume a gender. The pipe bomber has a very distinct limp that matches Shawnee Kirchhoff's.
Okay, so hang on. No, as an honest question, he didn't. I thought some of the evidence was that the items were purchased after January 6th, so it couldn't have made sense on that.
It couldn't make sense. They said he wiped his phone hundreds of times to show operational security. He started wiping his phone a year and a half after January 6th.
Oh! Hold on a second. But I was told that he already confessed.
Yes, yeah. After they took away his ability to drown out sound, this is one of these guys that wears headphones because of oversensitivity of hearing. Mm-hmm. If you see in his booking photo, he's wearing the headphones.
Isn't that interesting?
That never happens. That doesn't happen in a booking photo.
You don't get a prop?
To do that. Yeah. No. To calm him down. So for 2 hours, they hammered him and hammered him and hammered him. And finally, they leave the room where there's no clocks. And he's, from what I understand, there's this element to him where he's obsessed with clocks and time and is very regimented. No clocks, freaks out, doesn't know how long it is. They come back in. He tells them everything they want to know. And he says it had something to do with the IRA, like Ireland IRA. And motivation for that. And then also, even though he comes from a far leftist family, he's not political. He just felt there was something wrong. So he had dropped 2 inert devices on January 6th. So there's a whole host of problems here.
Okay.
And they're not going to be able to bring forward a successful prosecution if it was in fact a fair system, but it's not a fair system. But even then, with his new revelations about the failed polygraph, I think that we're going to have to do the break glass in case of emergency, which is what I've been saying for months. And that is that they're going to give Brian Cole Jr. a pardon. They're going to say that Trump pardons for January 6th apply to Brian Cole Jr. And the DOJ will fake fight it, but effectively yield to that so that they can say, well, he's free. I mean, who's going to protest that? The case is closed. We got our man, and we could just move on. And, dang it, it's that Judge Boasberg. It's that Judge Boasberg who did it to us again. We better reelect Mike Johnson and Jim Jordan so we can impeach him.
This honestly, right. This sounds like, and maybe it's still going on. What do you think? Mentally tortured this guy. He's been unjustly behind bars since December 4th. They're destroying him. Again, I go back to the whole thing I said earlier. I mean, what America is this, man? This is just gross. And this is with our guys, rah, rah. Our guys have the power. Yay. Do you think, and I'm totally giving them the benefit of the doubt here. I want to say I'm playing devil's advocate. I really think in this case, I'm playing devil's advocate. Fair. Could this administration, the FBI good guys, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and all the like, could they have gotten in there and earnestly followed the facts? And it didn't lead to Brian Cole initially, well, ever. But do you think that they were trying to find the real bomber, and then the machine above them, whoever that would be, came in and said, whoa, let me show you, let me introduce you to this patsy we got lined up in case you got this far?
I don't think that they're doing investigations at their level. They're getting briefed, right? I think it's entirely possible and actually likely that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino had no idea who Shawnee Kirkhoff was. And then she fails this polygraph.
Mm-hmm.
And then the people who are briefing them come and say, oh, no, we're clearing her. We got this other guy. And they're just taking it on good faith that these people are briefing them. And now they're invested. Their reputations are staked on this. And now, even though all the facts are presenting themselves out to the contrary, that to Brian Cole's guilt, because he's innocent, they're going to, for own self-preservation purposes, move forward with it.
Do you think that they are going, if that's the scenario here, are they going along with it just because they're so invested in it? Or is there something more sinister? In other words, does somebody have something over them like we referred to about an hour ago in the show?
Yes, that could be entirely possible. I think it's also as equally possible that they got the briefing of, if this comes out, the FBI goes away, and think of all the terrorists that are going to bomb the country. Think what this knowledge would be in the hands as propaganda for our enemies if Iran were to find out about this. Those are legitimate arguments that were made to whistleblowers who came forward with information to dissuade them. We know what you're saying is true. We know it's right. But if this fell into the hands of our enemies, how damaging would it be to our agency, the agency that does just so much good? Can't we just overlook this? And look, I don't know Brian Cole. From what I understand, he's severely mentally handicapped. Is there a chance that he's got child pornography? And they said, hey, you know what? He needs to go to jail anyway. I can kind of justify it. He's a pedophile, and if it's not this crime, it's another one. And I'm not going to shed a tear for him losing his freedom. You could see all those things playing into it.
What's the story on the video that has the puppies on it and whatnot? What's that?
Oh,
tell me about that, because that
story has evolved, man. That story has. So the reason that we were told that Shawnee Kirkhoff had been cleared was that there was a video that was somehow time-stamped of her playing with her puppies at the exact time that the pipe bomb was being laid, right?
That clears her.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and at the time you're like, she works for the CIA. You don't think they could timestamp a video? That's not good enough. But all right, fine. And then Steve Baker and Joe Hanneman went out and proved that she doesn't have puppies. She has one dog. It's an old dog. So there's an inconsistency. Well, potatoes, potatoes. And then it came out that it's actually a video of the dog, and they think her voice is in the background.
Hmm?
And nobody's been able to project a voice to a place they aren't before, like on a speakerphone of a telephone. When I think the pipe bomber was on the phone at one point in the video, or just a regular recording, or it's not her voice, it's just a voice.
So hold on, because I heard that the Brian Cole defense team has subpoenaed that video. Maybe we'll know something soon.
I doubt it, because it'll be national security. It's not germane, because you're dealing with the justice system in Washington, D.C., where they're going to err on the side of the regime, be the status quo.
So I just want your memory banks. I'm talking to you and the audience. Let's start with COVID. Just take yourself back to 2020 and just think of the incredible things that this government has perpetrated on you and your family, and the threats against you if you didn't take a certain vax. Let's say that this J6 pipe bomber story, that Steve Baker has the actual facts for it. Think of so many things. I just picked out two. I mean, we could go, if you want to go back a little bit further, we could talk about Obama spying on journalists. There's so many things. If this population hasn't gotten out in the streets for some of these incredible things, are they ever going to protest anything ever again? And if not, then where does this lead us? Because it's not a good place. This is slippery slope doesn't apply to this. We are falling off the side of a cliff. And I just, wherever this road goes, it's not a good place, because it just feels like fewer and fewer good people are standing up. And what happens when they do? Look at my guest today, Steve Friend. Their lives are absolutely ruined, man. And so what's the incentive to stand up and do the right thing and stick up for truth? And Steve Baker is just, I mean, gosh, he's got an article about threats and suspicious death, somebody that was helping him investigate, and his own heart issue. Again, it's absolutely demoralizing, especially when you take a step back and you go, oh my gosh, these are our guys doing what's happening here. And I'm not implicating anything nefarious specific to this administration, to what has happened to Steve Baker or the federal employee that was apparently assisting them in this investigation. I'm just saying that our guys, in quotes, are in power, the team that we wanted running the show, and this is where we're at. What in the hell? It's absolutely depressing.
Well, I mean, you're on the issue that I've talked about a lot, and that is the founding document for a country, our declaration. It lists off all their grievances that they have with the crown. But in the preamble, they explain that the default setting of mankind is to suffer while it's sufferable. This is a last resort. We really don't want to do this. We'd love to be Englishmen, right? And I think if you evolve it further, and we talked about China before, China kind of figured it out. Running over people with tanks doesn't go that well. But if you keep them comfortable, they'll suffer a lot. And we are, as a culture, as a globe, really, but in this country specifically, the richest country that's ever existed. If you go into a golden corral, you have more food at your fingertips than Genghis Khan had at the height of the Mongolian Empire. All right. And life is so darn comfortable that people will put up with a lot of despotism. Go back to coronavirus. I'm sorry, I don't call it COVID. Because I don't bend to the semantics of the World Health Organization, which invented the term COVID because they thought coronavirus was anti-Mexican. So coronavirus in 2020 taught us something. And I'll admit I was wrong. I thought, man, there's too much don't tread on me in this country. There's too many tatted up dudes who are listening to Rogan and doing their jujitsu, and you're not going to keep them down. There's not enough Netflix. But really what it showed us was that we were very comfortable and malleable as a result, and willing to go along with just intrusions onto our liberties that had never been attempted before. And I think another element of it is that because of our comfort level, the analogy I like to use is you'll see like older folks who are really like well off, they're established and retired, and they're living their golden years, right? And then they'll lose their patience over the smallest thing, and they'll go get so angry, like Joe Biden style, angry, right, out of nowhere. And I think that's because the human emotions stretch the gambit. It's like a muscle car, and unless you rev that engine, it just doesn't scratch that itch. And back to our level of comfort, we didn't have any fear. And I think that people thought, hey, you know what? 2 weeks zombie apocalypse, like we could kind of feel a little bit scared. It'll be kind of fun. It'll be a story to tell one day. And then we went along with it. And there was enough Netflix apparently, and Uber Eats and Amazon delivered and government stimmy checks. And people forgot the fundamental idea of being an American, and the trite saying about America is that America is an idea. And I have always said that America is an action verb. You have to do America. And that involves your actions at a local level, and just being involved. How many people don't even know their own congressman's name? But they can tell you every single one of the Kardashian sisters and who they're married to today, because it's comfortable and it's fun. And the sad reality that the people like yourself and the folks in your audience who are actually hungry for the information is that we are vastly outnumbered by people who do have the power, because they all have the power of the vote, who are just not genuinely concerned. Or if they see something that kind of gives them the bad case of the feels, they can change the channel and delude themselves in something else, or think, oh, that's just a one-off, and they're just not paying attention. Now, the upshot to that is, I said that the elected officials are one chapter ahead. They're really not that smart. That means there's only 435 of them in Congress. It doesn't take that many people to get there. It's just working yourself through the mush to get to actually achieve the change you need. And that's going to happen much quicker at a county level, at a municipal level, than it is at a federal level.
I hope so. I tell you, you should see my city council meetings, man.
Oh.
It's okay. Well, look, I'm sorry that we speak truth here, and if that truth is a downer, so be it. I'm sorry, but that's just where the conversation goes, because we speak in reality here. And I hope that justice is served with the J6 pipe bomber story. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays out, but I think you're right on the pardon thing. I think you're absolutely right on that. I want to steer it back to Kash Patel here. This is a video here that's making the rounds here from he had a hearing a couple months ago. And what's this people are like, hey, who's he signaling there? What's this ear tug there? Because he does it a couple of times after he's reading something, and people are suggesting that all right, he's signaling there because he's reading something, a directive or something. He's just kind of saying, hey, I got the message loud and clear. What's your take on something like this?
Well, I don't know the context for it. I have to find out what was being discussed, what he was being directed to read. But that looks like clear signaling to me. Anytime that I've dealt with undercovers or plainclothes people, anything around the head was something to look at. And I mean, I don't think he's telling the guy to swing away.
Steal second.
It's not a squeeze bunt here. He might have been signaling to another member to interrupt in some way. right? Because I think that there's a lot of
it may not be
arrangement.
some man in the high castle, right? It may be just somebody up there on the dais.
Yeah, I need a break here. I need you to interject and give me some
Uh-huh.
sort of air cover. I mean, having sat in one of those hearings, Keith,
Uh-huh.
I don't know if have I ever told you about the hearing that I testified in, the experience.
I watched it, but tell me what your story is. That's before I knew you. I watched every minute of you and
Oh, I'm
Garrett.
sorry.
What do you mean? I'm a
So
nerd.
there's a few things that people need to know, because we all say that Washington, D.C. and politics is Hollywood for ugly people. It is pure production. I mean, I went in there knowing that, and it still blew my mind. So you're sitting backstage, essentially, right? Like you're waiting to go on the stage.
Yeah, where is backstage at a hearing like that?
It's behind where the members are seated. They each kind of go to their own corners. Like they have their own entrance, like the one's a Democrat entrance and one's a Republican entrance. They have their own meeting rooms, and and they have a conference room and bathroom, and they had lunch if we wanted it afterwards, that sort of thing. But we got a hype speech from Jordan saying, you guys go out there, they're going to try to insult you, they're going to try to get you angry. You can't reply. You have to just take it, because you could be in big trouble if you do. So they make sure that you're going to be a good boy. Then you come on out and you sit down, and what you realize is that most of the members are not in the room. The TV cameras are set up in a way so that they focus in on the guy or gal who's asking the questions. It's their time. And most of the time, they don't pan back out that often, because the other members are not in the room. They're doing other stuff. I mean, they're probably meeting with lobbyists or donors or something like that. And then their staff members sitting in the back and just text them when it's their time to come in. So a couple minutes before, they text them. And every single person, every single member, they have a bottle of water set up where they're going to sit. So they will come in a couple minutes before their time, open the bottle, crack it open, and down about a third of it, and then set it down to make it look like they've been sitting there sipping their water the whole time. It's completely orchestrated.
Oh my gosh.
And then they ask you questions, and it's their time. They can pontificate all they want. They don't have to ask any questions. It's really not about what you would think a hearing is, which to me, it's an opportunity. It is a show, right? I did depositions before that. I gave them all the information to set them up, to set me up with good questions so that we could lay out a case. But that's not what it was. It was no interrogation. It was not a cross-examination. It was just, we're going to yell about Donald Trump. We're going to call you a traitor. And everybody just tries to get their zingers in one way or another. And then sitting there at the time, they told us that everybody was going to get 2 rounds of questions. So you're looking at the time, you're like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be like a 10, 12-hour day. And then what I started to realize was, as the day was going, that they were only going to get 1 round of questions in, because at that point I had spoken publicly. It was in May of 2023. So I'd been out kind of doing the public thing for about 5 or 6 months. And my counterpart, Garrett O'Boyle, he had not. And if anybody knows who Garrett is, you follow him on Twitter. It's at GOBActual. He's back with the FBI now, so he's not really posting on there, but you see pictures of him. He looks like a mountain man. He's a giant hulking human being. He's like 6'3", 230, 240, just terrifying. But in my mind, I'm thinking, they're not going to come at me that hard. They know that I can comport myself quite well. I'm not going to get up and flip the tables over if they insult me, but they're going to go after this mountain man. And sure enough, they did. And what they didn't know is that Garrett O'Boyle is extremely well spoken. He's extremely meek, and he is ready to go and is not going to fall into that trap too. So when they went after him and he kind of held up his end, that's when they just started to yell about reclaiming my time.
Yeah, man. Okay. I had some other things here I kind of wanted to touch on, kind of sticking in the cash realm there. Back to the Charlie Kirk assassination, where he tweeted out, "We got him." And that, of course, was erroneous. It was somebody else that they had arrested and interrogated, and that didn't lead anywhere. And this is different than the George Zinn, the guy who said it was me, and I don't know if you wanted to comment on that since we were talking about
Sure.
cash. But if you have any thoughts on that, please share them, because I still don't think that that his lack of professionalism during that has he ever been reprimanded? I mean, it just seems like that just went away. Like, oh, that's just crazy cash on the Twitters. But
Yeah.
but before we move off of Charlie Kirk, remind me, because I have a fact from that case that I don't know if I have bad information, but I need some clarification. But is there any thoughts on the cash front, since we were talking about him as it relates to
Yeah.
that murder?
So from what I understand, well, Cash Patel is desperate for Dad's approval. Because he's been such a terrible catastrophe as the FBI director. He can't wait to get out there and claim they got somebody or claim they need help when they do have somebody, because he's getting briefed by people trying to make him look bad. The Brown shooter, the Charlie Kirk assassination. It's happened multiple times where he claims the exact opposite of what's true on social media. So my sources tell me, and this has been multiple sources, that there was a conference call after Charlie Kirk gets shot where Patel, Bongino, and all of the chief executives around the country are basically on this conference call. And instead of saying, like, what are we going to do from a leadership perspective? How are we going to approach this case? It is basically Patel and Bongino planning out how they're going to tweak this case. First, I'll tweet this, and then you reply or quote tweet that. That was what their priorities were at the time. Public relations. They're in crisis. Anybody in crisis is going to lean on their strengths. Bongino, Patel, they perceive their strength to be social media influencing. That's what they went to. Now, when Patel gets embarrassed, the agents are interviewing somebody who's wrongfully detained. The call goes out, you need to find a crime on this person so that I don't look bad. We got our man, find a crime.
Whose America is this?
We got our checkup. There's no question about it, right? We have a law enforcement agency with intelligence collecting capabilities who is perceived to be nonpartisan, or at least controlled, if it is partisan, controlled by the good guys right now. But really, ultimately, it's defaulted back to what is good for the Bureau, which is why I got punished, because I said things that embarrassed the Bureau. Yeah. Now, I wasn't trying to embarrass the Bureau. If I was trying to embarrass them, I was trying to embarrass them back to a right position to do the right thing. But the ultimate sin in the FBI is embarrassing the FBI. You can overcome huge mistakes. I've said earlier, people having affairs, getting caught having affairs in the office. People I think it wrote down, she was in a state of undress. The she I'm talking about, she runs NTOC, the National Threat Operations Center, pictured with Cash Patel. You could have failures, catastrophic failures like Jen Moore, who was the intelligence special agent in charge of Washington, D.C. on January 6th. The worst intelligence failure since 9/11. She was promoted, Executive Assistant Director of Human Resources. You have Jacqueline McGuire. Jacqueline McGuire, she shot a dog in Philadelphia city limits. And that was after approving the arrest of Mark Houck, the pro-life protester. She got promoted twice. She wound up being in charge of training, giving out the guns to the new agents. You could overcome a lot. Just be a good soldier, do what you're told, never say no to a bad idea, and do not make the Bureau look bad. You can make yourself look bad, just not the Bureau.
When you hear one of these stories of, it's time and time again, you just went through several of them, of your professional peers, I guess, failing up. I mean, does that upset you, or does the Jimmy Buffett line, "If we couldn't laugh, we would all go insane"? I mean, where do you land on that? Because that would be frustrating as hell, man.
I mean, I go back and forth. You would never think of anything else, and I kind of rarely do think of anything else now, because it is incredibly frustrating that people who are ill-equipped or don't even appreciate the opportunity that they have to do something are rewarded. I mean, that's just fundamentally evil. I put the different categories of people in an FBI into a couple of different buckets. Number one was my bucket, the people that love the job. I had conversations with one individual I'm thinking of right now we would probably have the same conversation once a month. It would be on a Friday, on Federal Friday. Federal Friday is every Friday. Everybody leaves early. They leave a couple hours early, except he and I, because we love the job. And he would come over to my desk at the very end of the day and he'd say, they think they're getting over on us, but we're getting over on them, aren't we? It's like, oh yeah, man, this is the best job ever. I can't believe they pay me this to do this job. That's a small group of people. Other people are just, it's a job, professionals. Then there are the people that are resentful that you ask them to do their job. And those are the DMV types. And then you have the political climbers, the people that never say no to the bad idea, that will do and say whatever it is necessary so that they can ascend a ladder, because they know at their core they couldn't ascend any other ladder other than the one that has been artificially constructed for people like them to ascend, because they can recognize the people that are like themselves, and they promote just those people into positions of power and esteem and wealth and future prospects. And look, yours truly, it's not a one-off. This has happened multiple times to me, where I've been fired by the FBI a second time because I was accused of having threatened the life of the FBI director, when I very publicly said, I think that he's putting Brian Cole in prison to make himself look good, and he deserves to go to jail for that. That's not a threat. And in fact, if I threatened the life of the director, I think that there would be a arrest warrant put out for me, but never was. But publicly besmirched my reputation, put it out to the media. And I have been applying for jobs. I've been offered jobs. I've accepted those offers for jobs, and then had those job offers rescinded within a day because you embarrassed the Bureau. So calls were made, or you just Google my name and it'll say that I'm some sort of conspiracy theorist, or I threatened a FBI director, right? I should belong next to Brian Cole. I should be cellies with them at this point. Meanwhile, other guys and gals who are going along within the Bureau, they are thriving financially,
living comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that line that you keep repeating, don't embarrass the Bureau. Do you think that ultimately that is what became the predominant mantra of the J6 pipe bomber case?
I think it's the Bureau itself as the mop-up end of that, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that it is a legitimacy issue. I mean, if you knew nothing else other than that plot, that Reichstag fire plot, it would be the death knell in any objectively good country and government to just get rid of those elements of the government. There would be no justification for it. And that's one of the most egregious cross different agencies and departments examples that we can come up with recently. But that's only one. I mean, I've used these examples multiple times. If you knew nothing else other than the Hunter Biden laptop cover up, the FBI has to go, right? If you knew nothing else other than Crossfire Hurricane, well, the FBI's got to go, right? If you knew nothing else other than the FBI saying that it was misinformation that there was going to be foreigners voting in elections in, I think it was Pennsylvania, after having intercepted fake IDs for illegals in Pennsylvania, then you would say, oh, well, they got to go. But every single time, it's an evil that's sufferable, apparently.
Yeah.
And I guess people are just deluded that they don't think that this is an existential threat. Oh, it's not involving me. I'm not doing anything wrong. It doesn't matter if you've done anything wrong.
And it's honestly, it's like when I see all of this chaos and all the stuff that we tolerate, are we still standing as a nation because we're just so damn resilient? Are we just lucky? Are we just blessed? Are we just it's maddening that and I'm pointing at myself too. I never stood out in the street to I haven't protested anything since the Tea Party on April 15th, 2009. And I probably wouldn't even have been in that if I hadn't been invited to MC it there in Charleston, South Carolina, just because I was on the radio, like I probably wouldn't have shown up out there. It's like, so shame on me as well. But it's like, there's so many of these egregious things. And it's like, are we just that resilient and we can get past and power through all of this stuff? But but at the same time, we're losing liberty piece by piece, and this ends at a dead end eventually. And I hate this.
It's a slow creep. This is a huge country. I think one of the lessons that we're learning right now from the kinetic operation, definitely not a war. How dare you call me a stewardess? I'm a flight progress coordinator in Iran. Is that's 90 million people in a fairly sizable area. It's not going to be a cakewalk, right? It's going to take a long time. Well, we've got 400 million in a much larger area than that. And the government, as robust and well-funded and powerful as it is, like, we still outnumber them, which is, even as a January 6th reference, if that was a legitimate effort to overthrow the government, there were enough people there that they could have all just turned cannibal and taken a bite and eaten everybody in the Capitol who represented the government, and it would have been gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I want to put this up here on the screen here, because this is what frustrates me as much as anything we've discussed today, is the fact that, like a Crispy Critter says, it's crazy someone is not taking care of this BS for Steve. Like, seriously, like, somebody needs to hire this man. You want an honorable employee, reach out, send him a DM. Are your DMs open at Real Steve Friend?
Open DMs. I take crazy ones too all the time.
So somebody send him a job offer that he can't refuse, preferably in Northern Florida. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. Two things. You talked about Kash Patel's handling of the Brown shooting. Remind people why the FBI agents were so late in getting on the ground there in Providence for us after that shooting.
The plane wasn't available.
Why not? Why wasn't it available?
The pilot was too tired. He had mandatory rest because he had been flying Kash Patel on his social excursions. I believe that one was down to Nashville. Might have been Miami. I can't remember which one. He takes so many.
Miami. I think it was Miami, because I remember when you told this, I was thinking, wow, what's down there?
It wasn't the Boondoggle Ranch in Texas that he went to, or the Scotland trip.
But remember, he said that he would ground that jet if he were.
He said he would ground it, and then he proceeded to take 9 vacations in 2025. 9 vacations.
So this is what I want to talk about, the Charlie Kirk thing. I thought, and I have not been following the Charlie Kirk, the Tyler Robinson trial as closely as I planned to, and that's, again, shame on me. I was too busy protesting. See, I can't follow a trial if I'm out in the street protesting all the time. But I thought that Tyler Robinson had expressed to other people online ahead of time and so there was kind of a conspiracy in that, because my biggest thing right now, and again, I'm not trying to turn this into a Charlie Kirk conspiracy show, but the thing I'm trying to figure out is, I do believe that Tyler Robinson is the one who shot Charlie Kirk. I have watched plenty of videos from ballistic experts and seen videos and all sorts of the soft point, all the things on the bullet. Okay. The thing that I was trying to figure out is if there's a larger conspiracy. Is he connected to somebody else? And what happened to the people that he was supposedly in communication with beforehand? Do you have some knowledge on that, Steve, that you can reel me in, man?
Yeah, and I think this is worth going into a little bit here. And it's actually a nice toss back to our buddies Steve Baker and Joe Hanneman, who broke this story, I think it was September of last year.
Okay.
Everybody's talking about potential overseas connections. I mean, I'm not read in on the file, so I don't know. And I know that's what Joe Kent was digging into when he was butting heads with Kash Patel. But there is a huge potential here. I think Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk. I mean, it's pretty clear to me. But maybe having connections to other people, maybe being motivated to do it by other people, or other things. Because the story that Steve and Joe broke was about the discovery of a server farm outside of New York.
Okay, I remember that story.
And that is under the investigation of the Department of Homeland Security, even though it should be under the investigation of the FBI, because DHS doesn't trust FBI and refuses to turn it over to them. And what people need to know about these server farms is that they have the potential to create thousands and thousands of chatbot personas that can go out into the internet and infiltrate groups and talk to them and find people and potentially radicalize them. And that's a Chinese server farm. Who's to say that the robust cyber capabilities of an Iran or another evildoer, or Russia, North Korea, wherever, couldn't set up some sort of a server farm or set it up in their home country, because the internet transcends borders. And then you have a persona, that person who is vulnerable to its persuasions could think that they're interfacing with another person and it's their friend, their only friend in the world, and convinces them to go do something that they're not predisposed to do or capable of doing, but for the involvement of that chatbot. And that applies even to our government, which does it now with people, with undercovers in person and increasingly online covert employees, OCEs, which find people and encourage them to embrace their worst ideas, do things they're not predisposed to do, vulnerable people who then go and agree to do those things so that the FBI can come and arrest them for being a terrorist. It goes on all the time. It's an entrapment. I call it the FBI playbook. And what we will see in the next evolution or devolution of that is something that is the AI component of that. And that is the same thing, a chatbot that can go out, and it will be built to the American people as something that is good, an objectively good thing. It'll say, hey, I'm going to go out and pose as a 13-year-old boy and see if a pedophile takes a pass at me, and then law enforcement will have it. Or, hey, I'm going to go out there as a would-be Antifa member, and I'm going to see who wants to. But what it's going to wind up happening is that they're going to entrap people. Yeah. So back to Tyler Robinson, I think it's entirely possible that a foreign actor has a chatbot that drove this guy to go do something.
Very interesting. Yeah. Is that the guy that is that going to be the same person that was on, was it YouTube communicating with him and then the communications cut off? Or do you think that was actually, oh, I'm sorry. Nope. Back up. I'm sorry. Time out, Keith. Back up. Pretend I didn't say that. Yours is the chatbot. I'm thinking of Thomas Crooks being groomed by a federal employee.
Oh, I think he was being groomed. Yeah. But
sorry, I get my assassins and would-be
assassins are all mixed up
here. Yeah.
But the software, it's called Overwatch, that law enforcement can use right now with these online identities, these AI chatbots. It can go from platform to platform to platform. It's not limited to one, and it can take chats private. So you didn't know that. So you would honestly think, well, this is definitely a person. But we went from Telegram and now we're talking on Signal. I mean, you wouldn't think that it's the exact same ones and zeros.
I had no idea, man. I missed that detail. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let me wrap this up. You're awesome as a guest and as a host. Check out American Radicals podcast, especially on Spotify. Get over there. That's where I like my podcast, so you should too. Follow Steve on X at Real Steve Friend. Before we go, though, here's my last question, and it applies not just to Kash Patel or a Dan Bongino or to anyone, I guess, in government. But you know what? No. Let me specifically ask you of just Kash. Let's just leave it at Kash and just be done with it. Do you think, and I'm asking you to hypothesize here, do you think that he actually, because he was in DC before he was the FBI director, but do you think that he wants to be in government, or at some point wanted to be in government to actually do good and was just corrupted? Or do you think he was always a bad seed? Because I mentioned earlier how I was on the Iraq war and how I regret, like, I should have gone with my gut originally, but eventually I signed on to it, and I shouldn't have, because I was lied to. And that's where I am with Kash, kind of, in that I was all for him being in there, but now I want him out yesterday. And was I just duped? Were we all just duped? Was he really just damaged goods from the start? Or just when you get in that role, that's what happens? Help me to reconcile this, man.
The answer is yes. So you get in that role, and I think that does happen. They bubble wrap you, and they give you the cool guy stuff. They take you out to see the hostage rescue team and give you the gear, and you're flying the helicopters and the plane. I mean, that's a nice life.
And you get the jacket. Don't forget, he's very into the jackets.
medium jacket that he stole from a female agent. But I think Patel, from what there's been other reporting and other people who I've talked to who have done investigating on him, his aspirations and ambitions were to be rich and famous. And he identified a niche, a place that he could ingratiate himself. And Donald Trump he likes the fealty, right? In the Epstein administration, you got to do that MAGA land acknowledgement. And that has bode well for him. And he found this as an industry, right? He got into the politic commentary and influencing, and he stood up kind of a sham charity, which much to my shame, I helped them do fundraising for because I thought they were doing good. And then since then, I've done my own research on and realized that they were sending money overseas and sending almost no money to the recipients, and Cash and his vice president were pocketing quite a handsome payment out to themselves because they were buying merch to sell from themselves. I mean, it's just kind of a ridiculous scheme that he's got. And he's arranged for himself to be ingratiated within the MAGA movement as a person who's famous. And this was a way to do it. I had, texting correspondence with him, and it was, what do you think you're going to do? And he was like, well, either CIA or FBI. Well, but those are completely different mission sets and different expertise. He just wanted to be something. This was that.
This was that. Well, lovely. What a strange timeline we're living on, huh? I tell you what. Be sure to follow all of these wonderful. Let's see, and Born Genius does all my work for me. Thank you. At the Mike Show. All these are X handles, by the way. At Second Floor Dallas. At Jeffy Apologist. It's at Real Steve Friend, and at Amrad Pod, which is also on X. And my goodness, I should be paying Born Genius. Come back tomorrow for Thursday deep dive on childhood vaccines. Yeah, absolutely. So, Steve, any parting thoughts here before we go? I just want you to know that I am grateful that I can call you my friend, and I am so sorry. And I say this every time because I feel it, man. I'm so sorry for what you have gone through and what you continue to go through. As an American, it pisses me off to see an honorable person such as yourself suffer needlessly while these evil sons of bitches continue to get away with everything. And it just breaks my heart for you and your family. And just y'all pray for Steve and pray for all of the people that stand up and blow the whistle and then end up suffering because of it.
Well, I appreciate it. Let me pay this one forward to you, and I'm going to give a homework assignment to the At the Mic viewership here. Okay. Go to Spotify. You gotta check out At the Mic, even if you watch somewhere else, once a week. This is what I tell my audience, and this is what Keith is going to start telling you. I'm giving you a preview. Follow At the Mic once a week. Push play and mute it.
Yeah, you don't have to listen to me.
You don't even need to listen to it.
You don't have to listen.
Get him to 1,500 followers. He can monetize that sucker.
Oh, that's right. Is that what it is? See, I don't even know, man. I don't even know that. No, and I know it's confusing because there's two At the Mics. I used to do the other one. I should probably just take it down. I don't even know how to. I probably lost the password and stuff. But this is the logo you're looking for. See the black square with the green lettering. If you see the green square, well, I'm sorry. That's the old show that I again should probably just remove from being able to locate. So I'm the most disorganized person in the world. It's not just limited to this side of the room. It's everywhere. It's definitely here. Hell, it's right here. I mean, I want you to contrast. Look at Steve Friend's serious business setup. I mean, look at it. So clean. It's just a nice little setting. Go and have like a drink and hang out with Steve. And then mine looks like I don't know, a cartoon character vomited here. In the background. You know what, though? I do need to update. I'm so proud of my pups. They've been so quiet today. So we've done one show without a bark. So kudos to teammates Tanner and Matilda. One show without a bark here on At the Mic. Steve Friend will do it again sometime real soon. Appreciate you, buddy. You stay strong out there, okay?
You got it, man. Have a good weekend.